Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. We continue our series now investigating the state of Ontario's child welfare system with a startling figure, 2,000. That's the number of times in a single year kids and youth in that province were physically restrained. 87% of the time, those restraints happened in group homes, where kids live in a communal house with staff. The data from 2020 to 2021 was uncovered in a joint investigation by Global News and APTN, which also found a pattern of physical interventions at some privately operated group homes and youth who say the use was unjustified. So what does it mean to be restrained? Global's Carolyn Jarvis shows us firsthand.
I'm going to fold you down.
This is what a restraint can look like for kids in group homes.
I'm going to go quick.
Okay.
This is how you hold somebody in a prone position.
A physical intervention the Ontario government only permits as a last resort.
And so this is where a restraint could stop.
Yeah.
When there's an imminent risk of harm to a youth or others.
Little step down.
Okay, whoa.
But people who grew up in group homes told us they're used far more frequently to get kids to comply.
For me, it feels like a body check to the floor.
Ari Calero Romero, who was developmentally delayed, was restrained 69 times during the year and a half he lived at an Ottawa group home.
Pain.
It hurts.
Yes.
Ari lived at a group home run by a private company called Mary Homes, which, according to our analysis, had one of the highest number of physical interventions among service providers in the province.
My arm snapped.
Ari was 12 in September of 2019 when he was restrained on the floor yet again. His account of what happened and the incident report from workers differs greatly. What isn't contested is that it ended with his left arm broken. Ari is now suing Mary Homes for $200,000. Mary Homes wouldn't comment on the incident nor its frequent use of restraints, but intends to defend against the lawsuit.
It's a very scary experience, especially for kids with mental health issues.
Psychologist Maurice Ferrugi says restraints are an ineffective tool that further damages vulnerable young people.
We hear that all the time, that they have been traumatized and they will have specific flashbacks of experiences when they were restrained, and these will last throughout their lives.
It tells me that adults have lost control.
What's crucial, says crisis intervention trainer Steve Hall, is that staff know how to de-escalate situations.
Carolyn, we don't want to go here.
And not be triggered themselves.
A vast majority of the situations that I was involved with or I witnessed could have been avoided if adults would have been in better balance emotionally.
He says the best restraint comes from care providers who don't use force. Carolyn Jarvis for APTN National News.
5 people were reportedly hit by a truck during a residential school march in Mission, British Columbia last Saturday. 2 sustained injuries requiring medical care. Well, the driver of the hit and run turned himself in. No charges have been laid, and he is not in police custody. The response by the RCMP is also being called into question.
Christopher Robertson with the Crazy Indians Brotherhood, who organized the march, says a number of vehicles were unhappy to be delayed.
We had some people risk everyone's lives zooming past us in the oncoming traffic. They were none too happy what we were doing.
Then, he said, one of the marchers at the back, wearing a yellow safety vest with a slow sign, was run over.
See, that truck did something over there. He's on film.
In all, 5 people were reportedly hit. The most serious was the man protecting the back of the march, who suffered a concussion, scrapes, and soft tissue injuries. Robertson thinks the police response would have been different if an Indigenous driver ran into a crowd of non-Indigenous people.
If this were myself driving, I'd still be in custody. There would be attempted murder, aggravated assault, assault with a deadly weapon, misuse of a motor vehicle, attempted murder with a motor. The list would have just piled and piled.
Meanwhile, a talking circle was held on Wednesday with RCMP members and people involved in the hit and run incident. As Tina House reports, it got heated as the community members recalled what happened.
It all started last Saturday as over 100 people gathered to pay their respects to children being found in unmarked graves on residential school properties. They were marching along Lougheed Highway to the former St. Mary's Residential School near Mission, BC. There were elders, children, and kids in strollers and wheelchairs, along with members of the Crazy Indians Brotherhood walking alongside each other. Troy Ingraldi, who was directing traffic at the back, was the first to encounter a man in the blue truck.
He stopped and got out of his vehicle and started cussing and yelling at me, started pushing me in my forehead, tapping my forehead, saying, "I want to see your permits, I want to see your permits." I said the permits were up front. I tried calming him down. He got angry and irate. I'm like, "You can't stop, like you have to stop, you can't go anywhere." And he said that I will run you over and everybody else too. He's like, "I don't care if there's kids on the road, I'll run them over too, keep filming me, make me famous."
Troy says what happened next, he is still having a hard time with.
When he proceeded to get in his vehicle, I still had my paddle sign up with the stop sign up, and he ran me over from the front part of his truck, the front left fender, hit me, and it took me under the truck and the tires spit me out. And I rolled onto the ground and I lay there for about a split second, and then I hopped up right away because I was scared that if I would have laid there any longer, because he had a smile on his face while he did it, that he would have ran me over.
This video was caught just after witnesses say the man in the blue truck hit Troy and 4 others. In the slowed down video, you could actually see him hit 2 people.
That truck did something over there. He's on film.
Although his license plate was given to the RCMP, it was only after social media and news media reports that the driver actually turned himself in on Monday. He was let go with no charges, but his truck was impounded. At this talking circle with members of the RCMP, people are upset. Upset that the RCMP wrote a statement last Sunday stating that it was an impatient driver who drove through the group of peaceful marchers, although they didn't actually talk to the suspect until Monday. That statement was later removed off the RCMP website.
My son almost lost his life. This woman almost lost her life. This man was run completely over. How much more evidence is needed?
Kaylee McLaren was also at the meeting with the RCMP. She said she tried to stop the truck by pulling out in front of him.
I begged and pleaded with this man. There is elderly, there is children, disabled people. We're marching for a purpose. This is Indigenous land. This man didn't care. He called us dirty effing Indians. He looked me in the face, laughing, saying he was going to run my children over. This is not okay. It took you guys 3 days to get a hold of me because my brother had to tell you guys to get a hold of me after I gave my information to the police officer on scene.
Although the RCMP mostly listened to everyone, we asked for an interview yesterday for this story, but they did not respond by the time this story went to air. The rest of the people involved are still waiting for RCMP to take their statements. Tina House, APTN National News, Sagkeeng First Nation.
A 31-year-old Winnipeg woman is in custody and faces charges after police say they located a deceased infant girl in a garbage bin. Winnipeg police are identifying the deceased as Baby Moore. The woman, the mother of the infant, is facing charges of manslaughter and concealed body of a child. Police say they believe Baby Moore was alive when she was placed in the garbage bin.
We're talking about an infant. This is somebody that was born and discarded, has no chance of living a fulfilling life. So it's extremely traumatic for the family. It's extremely traumatic for the community at large. It's traumatic for the first responders that also attended to this event. This is it's immediate and ongoing as far as trauma. And even for the people that are viewing today and people that are going to be reading about this incident, it's very traumatic for them as well.
Sagkeeng First Nation started looking for unmarked graves 1 year ago. And last week, the community came together to discuss what they have found so far. Sagkeeng is about an hour north of Winnipeg. Community leaders used ground-penetrating radar in 2 places, including the site of the former Catholic residential school, which operated on the reserve between 1905 and 1970. Chief Derek Henderson says the radar turned up 190 possible unmarked graves. The next step is finding out exactly what they are.
And again, these are the disturbances in the soil, that could fit the criteria of potentially unmarked burial sites. We don't know yet what's there, but I mean, that's something that we've been working on now for the last year.
The National Indian Residential School Crisis Line is available for survivors and others who might need support. That number is 1-866-925-4419. The federal government has announced a point person to help out with the ongoing investigations into hundreds of suspected unmarked graves at former Canadian residential schools. APTN's Fraser Needham has some details.
Kimberly Murray of Ganasatake Mohawk Territory in Quebec is the new special interlocutor on suspected unmarked graves at several former residential schools in Canada. She says she fully realizes her job will be challenging.
It was not an easy decision to take this role as special interlocutor.
Murray's role has been described as helping Indigenous communities collect information from these suspected unmarked grave sites and helping resolve jurisdictional disputes if they arise. But as Justice Minister David Labette points out, Murray will not have the power to prosecute.
In my role as Attorney General at the federal level, I can't appoint a special prosecutor.
Nonetheless, Murray says she will be working with the communities to see if they want the sites investigated as crime scenes.
Do we invite the police in? What police? RCMP, provincial police, municipal police, First Nations police. And there are pros and cons to all of those that I've heard talking to survivors in the last year.
Chief Cadmus Delorme of Cowessess First Nation says the #1 priority for his community is attaching names to grave sites. But he says Murray will help ensure any evidence is preserved.
This position will make sure that Cowessess, if there is any criminal activity, we are treating our site like a criminal site. Like we're making sure every one of our technical teams gathers every evidence. We can't go to the local RCMP because what are we actually going to show them?
And Kupi Roseanne Kashmir also says her community wants to make sure investigations are done properly.
And it's also about preserving the evidence to ensure that, rigor in our investigation to ensure that if we find that crimes were committed, the evidence is there to pursue those criminal prosecutions.
Marie officially begins her 2-year contract June 14th. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Coming up, the latest on the suspended Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. Stay with us. Welcome back to APTN National News Weekend. Indigenous women's groups and political parties have signed off on an open letter to the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. The letter is critical of the way the AMC is handling sexual assault allegations against Grand Chief Arlen Dumas by a number of women. It says a request to meet the chiefs to talk about a trauma-informed way of helping the women who made the allegations has gone unanswered. The letter calls for an independent inquiry co-led by the AMC and victim advocates. Dumas was suspended by the chiefs earlier this year after a senior AMC employee accused him of sexual assault. Since then, a few more women have come forward. No criminal charges have been laid against Dumas. Meanwhile, that woman who filed the sexual assault complaint against the Grand Chief has come forward in a Facebook post. AMC senior staffer Shauna Fontaine said in the lengthy post that she filed a complaint to the AMC and a report to Winnipeg Police in March of this year. She added her name to an open letter addressed to AMC regarding the handling of allegations against Dumas. She wrote in the post that she does not feel supported by the current process, and AMC has not communicated with her or her legal team. Her community already knows who she was, but she went public because of the way AMC was handling her complaint. AMC has not responded to numerous interview requests. Almost $500,000 will flow to a Quebec justice program aimed at addressing the overrepresentation of Indigenous peoples incarcerated in Canada. The numbers are quite staggering. A recent Senate report found more than 50% of women in this country's prisons are Indigenous. And as a whole, Indigenous peoples make up 32% of those who are incarcerated. The new funding will go to the First Peoples Justice Centre of Montreal and a number of supports aimed at empowering Indigenous peoples within the justice system, as well as helping them access culturally appropriate services as they reintegrate into society. Justice Minister David Lametti says the money is a small step in tackling what is a big problem.
It's part of the piece. I mean, there isn't one single thing. We need to, Bill C-5 is part of it, making sure that there's more flexibility in sentencing. But we also need to work. Let me put it this way: if you're an Indigenous person, you're more likely to be stopped by the police. If you get stopped by the police, you're more likely to be brought to the police station. If you're brought to the police station, again, it's statistically true. If you're an Indigenous person, you're more likely to be charged.
An estimated 7 million Canadians say rising inflation and soaring housing costs are forcing them to go hungry just to make ends meet. A new report from Food Banks Canada shows 1 in 5 Canadians are going hungry, with 23% saying they're eating less than they think they should because they don't have enough money for food. Food Banks Canada says this summer will be the toughest Canadian food banks have faced in the organization's 41-year history. Well, it's graduation season. We'll check in on a First Nations grad in Whitehorse after the break. Welcome back to APTN National News Weekend. A very unique aviation school calls the Mohawk community of Tyendinaga home. It's the one and only post-secondary Indigenous aviation program geared to First Nations, Métis or Inuit in the country. Here's Annette Francis with its success and setbacks.
6 days a week, morning to night, you'll find this runway busy with flights taking off and landing. These are students training to become pilots in the First Nations Technical Institute's aviation program. It's helping Joseph Aklajuk's dream become a reality.
In the later in high school, we were asked to do an assignment of what we wanted a career to be, and I already knew I wanted to be a pilot. So I had searched Indigenous flight school, and FNTI was the first one that came up, and I had applied immediately when I found out.
It's going to be a big loss to the territory.
Just last February, a raging fire almost brought an abrupt end to the school year. The dean of the aviation program started her flight career as a student here in 1990. She says it was devastating.
We lost everything. We've been building this program for 30 years, and then suddenly, in 17 minutes, the largest part of our program was gone. The World War II hangar, our approved maintenance organization, 13 aircraft, 5 of which were brand new, and our dispatch. Everything was gone. So moving forward was a difficult task to know where to start first.
And they came up with a plan fast with support.
We were able to secure 3 leases of aircraft, 2 of which came from Seneca College, who were one of the first to reach out to say, hey, how can we help? What can we do? And we said we needed airplanes. And so we were able to lease 2 aircraft from Seneca and 1 from an old FNTI friend of ours.
There's support for the new students from across the country as well.
For the students that were yet to come, the aviation industry also started reaching out too. We have a really great reputation and relationships with a lot of airlines, and they wanted to know how to support us. So they are now supporting the 13 students to flight train near their communities this summer. So we have 7 flight training units supporting 13 students across Canada.
The students are now working 6 days a week to catch up on their training hours. Aklajuk's already earned his commercial pilot's license and needs a few more things before he graduates in a few months. And like all the other graduates of this program, he's already been offered a job.
When I do finish, I do want to go back home and work for Canadian North. I'm going to be starting the process for communicating with them soon. But when I do go back home, I want to make my family proud, and I fly them on the planes there.
Tessie Chinna expects to graduate this fall. She says one day off isn't too bad. Flying's what drew her to the program.
I'm from the Northwest Territories, so you meet a lot of pilots, and no pilots ever hate their job, so I was like, it intrigued me.
Remediation on the burn site is expected to be complete soon. Then a new building will go up to house the leased planes. Another 10 students are expected to begin the popular program in September, and 50 more are on a waiting list. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Tyendinaga.
Well, it's that time of year again, graduation season. Over 100 high school graduates gathered in Whitehorse with their regalia at a First Nations graduation ceremony. Our reporter Sarah Connors caught up with some of those grads to see how they were feeling about their big day.
Oh, I'm here for the Native grad because I am graduating this year. Pretty nervous, excited, a little bit of both, yeah.
He's not even already
graduated. My mother sewed embroidery, and my godmother put it all together and had the Delta braid down here put on. My future plans are going back to school down the line and probably have kids. Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm feeling happy. I'm like all these beautiful people here, all their beautiful regalia, and I don't know, I feel like I'm in the right place right now. I am looking into doing nursing schools, like doing nursing courses. There's a 2-year course up in the college there that I'm looking into. Yeah, so I made this in less than 3 weeks to get it done for today, and it symbolizes my clan. I'm a wolf, and I have these paws for my brothers, because they're both wolves.
I have all different kinds of mixed feelings, but mostly I'm incredibly proud of myself. If this was me last year, I would have never thought I would have made it here, and yeah, I'm just super proud of myself, and it's such a good day. I got accepted into Yukon University, and I'm undecided between business and social work, but I'm leaning more towards social work. My auntie, Marla Charlie, she made the dress and the slippers, and she was my mom's best friend, who is she passed on a while ago, and so the belt, my grandma Winnie Greenland from McPherson made it. This is like just the first step of like the next chapter of my life, and it's just something to celebrate.
Some proud-looking parents there. Congrats to all the grads, and good luck with all your future endeavors. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News this weekend. For news anytime or more on anything you've seen here, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for spending some of your weekend with us. Enjoy the rest of your day.